Hello, hello. So today we have an Attack on Titan Origins of Power box opening to show off. This set is releasing on Friday, November 8th, so that's coming up very, very soon. Pre-releases are wrapping up, and you're going to start seeing box opening videos all over the place this week. But if you're not familiar with how I like to do mine, more so than just, ripping through the packs and looking at the visuals of the card, although, we'll probably, zoom in a bit on the nice, pearls and obsidians and whatever else we might get. Really, I like to just pick a card out of each pack and yap about it a little bit. Just some strategy thoughts, some, where it might be in the meta, just whatever I think might be interesting out of each pack to talk about. Whether it's common, uncommon, the character, whatever. The ultra rares, secret rares. Just to add a little bit to this besides just, showing off some cards, right? So, without further ado, we'll get right into it. We have our box here. Took the plastic off already. Booster boxes in UVS, if you're not familiar, are 24 packs. So we've got these in here. Alright, and let's see. Let's just lucky top right here. See what we get. I think in terms of hits that I'm looking for, I want to say the teamwork, the 5 mid 5 air secret rare, and the 6 high 6 that I'm forgetting the name of are probably the ones I'm most interested in getting some copies of. But we have, let's see how we're on focus here. We got inverted cut, move forward, look out, reflexive, cleaning duty. Again, we're not gonna spend too much time looking at every card. Emerging Revelation is kind of a fun one. We got Moment of Peace, Battle Plan, and Crushing Step. Now I'm told that chromes can show up in any slot, so we'll probably still go through each card on all of these. And let's see, up a little bit. Oh, Reflexive Shot. Well, let's see if there's any higher. We're going to see the commons on it. Yeah, let's talk about this action card. I believe this is a cycle. I believe there is a cycle of normal rare action cards that are all 2/5s. I think are all +2 mids that do a couple different things. So this kind of just, the response just kind of cycles itself. That's not too exciting, but, it's a decent backup plan to enhance +4 damage, just something you kind of pull out to finish someone off. I think this one's probably not the best of them. I'd have to look at them all, but I think there are better ones in this cycle. This one compares, I think, about Arbor from a previous set as a really cool action card that I would play over this. Obviously different symbol situation, but still, the cycle's a nice backup plan, and sometimes just having like one of those nice 1x types of cards, right? Your opponent doesn't necessarily think you might have anything, and then here's this action for +4 damage that you just pull out. Although, Sugar Rush comes to mind as well, but Fire Attuned might fit in some different decks. Alright, let's see. How do I want to do this? I think I'm just going to lay out like the Ultra and Secret Rares and whatnot on here, and the rest we'll just put in some piles over this way. Two. Kenny Surprise. Titan Swarm. Rank of Titans, Improvised Anchor Shot, and Suppressive Fire. Let's see. Well, let's talk about Reiner. This is the Reiner Braun Warrior is a character. He has a lot of text on them. He's got a lot going on. There's the first thing you think of is King Ghidorah, and it's a little easy not to recognize sort of what this guy is and what his implications are. I think it's a pretty interesting design. I generally don't like, they used to be called desperation characters, where you got punished for putting them below half, and Reiner does have some of that. Once you get him effectively halfway, because he takes 17 and then heals himself back up, his flip side is more powerful than his face side, generally speaking. But even so, his face side, mill 4 and get, once you've cycled 1/1, depend if you've milled, a few different card types, that's going to be pretty often if your deck is built the right way, +3/+3 on every move. So even on his front side, even if you, don't play ball, even if you say, well, I'm not going to attack you and flip you over, I'm going to stop you from doing your thing. He's still going to get very dangerous once he cycles, regardless. But up until that point, he doesn't do a whole lot, so It's a pretty interesting space. Once he starts to get close to the end of his deck, it's sort of like you might as well start attacking him and you're not going to get punished too badly. Granted, his other side, has that -5 damage soak on the first moves, and the enhance, in addition to getting a bunch of stats, lets him pick up momentum, so it is better. But it's not as oppressive as, like, if you were playing in the Mortal Kombat days, Scorpion was sort of the face of desperation decks, and if you were foolish enough to deal 5 damage to him or something, you might just get blown up for your transgression, sorry. Yeah, so he could be pretty good, just sort of in the same shape of those Endeavor decks. You're kind of just, you're not going to have a whole lot going on the first couple turns. He can mill defensively, so he might cycle faster than Endeavor was able to. Maybe more of a turn 3 thing. It's going to be interesting to see what people do with this guy. Definitely something to keep an eye out for competitively, I think. Let's put these aside. Let's just get all the packs on the screen. There we go. Alright. Keep passing on. Commons that we're gonna see a few times. Ooh, got the alternate art Armin Arlet, Brilliant Mind. They got a little bit of a foil pattern here. You got a little bit of a checker with the sort of shining beacon lines. People are enjoying the abs that he has in the manga that I guess he probably doesn't have in the animated version. But in the manga, yeah, they drew him like this sometimes. We might as well talk about him, probably, since we got the cool one. Got a sword advantage, devour, pushing limits, and close combat tackle. Another cool one, actually. But yeah, hey, we opened this Armin. So, this guy's a little weird. 631, he wants to play this new outwit mechanic. You're probably going to play a couple of those. But I think most of the early ones that I've seen are doing a little bit more of, okay, I breaked you, commit a foundation. Okay, I deflected you, commit a foundation. Okay, I stunned you, stun one more. And just kind of adding up commits that way. Probably always off of order, just so you can get walk the dog into this situation, right? But, like the Armin before him, or at least one of the Armins before him, no inherent stats going on, so your attack lineup has to carry all of the work, but order is certainly capable of doing that. You can get some of that Death Attune stuff in there. And then, the form obviously is there to set up some outwits, but you might be able to do some other stuff with it. He's kind of interesting. I haven't seen too much noise about him. I think there's probably just not a lot of faith in a character right now that just doesn't do stats, which people can get a little bit carried away with, right? The Krista from the first set's a little bit better than people originally gave her credit for, but still, it's certainly a lot harder than a character like Reiner that just slams stats on everything, right? But interesting nonetheless. Pretty good alt art. We'll have him hang out up here. Set these aside. I can keep my piles in order, which I can't. I probably don't need to, there we go. Alright. Let's see, going at a bit of a slow pace here, I guess, but that's fine. That's kind of the point. These usually take a little while. Here's the leg. Maybe try to have the coldest on in the set, but we'll leave that for a common tier list that I want to do at some point. Got a bunch of videos coming up for other things, though. Got Desperate Targets, speaking of Armin. Here's just Cervicore Elite. Jump into action. Alright, I'm gonna see if there's a common I like in here. Alright, this one's a little bit thin. Let's see, well... We'll talk about Attack Titan's hardening. So this is another cycle. There's a few different cycles in this set, and one of them is, we talked about the action cycle before. This is a 1 difficulty 5 check blow up a foundation cycle. This is probably the most interesting one, because early on it's damage reduction, and then once you've cycled it turns into really a better rate than what we've gotten on kind of any of the cards in this shape. There's a lot of 1/5 destroy 1 foundation : foundations out and about in the format, and they're all kind of similar shaped. You get one stat somewhere. This one has -1 damage, which is fine. It's not bad, but the fact that you have the chance to get +1/+1 on a post-cycle situation, I think this one has a decent shot to see some play, depending on the deck. Obviously in something like a Reiner, but even decks that aren't expressly trying to cycle, but kind of figure they might do that at some point, could be interested in running that one. Come on. Having a hard time with this pull tab. I see I see the peak of a Pearl, I think. The 5th pack. I've got another Pierce the Leg right at the start. Alright. Let's see what we got. Oh, we have Sasha. We love Sasha. Oh no, it's not. Okay, never mind. Ultra Rares just look like this sometimes. We have Levi's Rapid Takedown, Titan Training, Fatherson. I forgot that Ultra Rares have that border, so I was like, oh, I gotta... Levi's Rapid Takedown is still neat, though. Yeah, this is kind of a funny one to talk about. So it's just a throw. It is a bit of a weird choice for an Ultra Rare because it's kind of shaped like an uncommon. Very nice art, though. And that might be why this might be the kind of thing where they had this really good frame and they wanted to use sort of the full height card art for it. And so they decided that, you know, this art was going to be an Ultra Rare and it's obviously a throw, and then this is what they wound up doing with it. Even so, you know, every so often you'll have a deck that's just like, yeah, I'm just going to play this 5-diff throw, so I have a throw in my deck for XYZ reason, and this is as good a choice as any. You're giving your next attack 3 damage. If you're sort of mixing throws with other moves that have some speed on them, it could be more exciting than the throw itself getting more damage on it. That's just going to get cut in half anyway. So this is a pretty good throw for the purposes of, you know, a deck that's playing a lot of like mostly 4-diff moves, but wants some kind of a throw to poke for momentum or to sort of lead into an attack turn with. Get a little stun, you get a little damage on your next attack. I think almost because it's an Ultra Rare and people have higher, you know, more expectations of Ultra Rares, people are gonna think worse of this card than they might have thought of it if it was a lower rarity. But the rarity doesn't change what the card does. It's still a pretty okay card. Side here. Oh, we should put. Yep. Pulse build up here. Supplies, airborne. Environment. Got Gene. Not out. Let's talk about Gene, as I'm reminded that maybe this is the first deck I should build for my locals, because I've been thinking about this guy at least a little bit. You know, 722 scaling damage as the turn goes on, almost an Emir shape, but you don't have to flip him and you don't have to necessarily play, you know, specific cards in terms of, you know, having to lose health and then gain health, but instead you just get the scaling damage. You don't have quite as high of a, you know, you're not going to get to +10 with this, but +1 damage and then +1 for every 2 non-action cards is, even if you're just playing attacks, that's +1, +2, +2, +3, +3. And if you're playing some of, you know, his foundations, which of course you're encouraged to play with this guy, then you can ramp that up a little bit quicker. And picking up an attack from discard after you take a hit, so it encourages you to play some attacks with Breaker perhaps, or just using it as some Blockstone hunting, so sort of a pseudo, not really an 8 hand size, but you get the extra card when you need it. Pretty interesting. I played really, back in ancient times, I enjoyed playing a 7-hander that just kind of got like +1 for each move you played that turn. And I'm gonna try this. Try to lean into that 3 difficulty attack theme, play a bit of a high attack count, see what happens. It's a little, you know, it's pretty unga bunga, but sort of just interesting to play a deck like that and see what it does, just to get a feel for it. I guess as I'm thinking about it, it's probably in the same space that Devil Jin is, and Devil Jin probably does that better, but, you know. Bertolt Hoover Living Weapon. Deadly Conflict for our action cycle. Alright. don't really want to talk about Bertel Hoover living weapon. Let's see. Let's talk about chaos in the streets. Speaking of Krista from before, this card is pretty spicy in certain characters like Krista, or even in general. You know, if you can do any sort of top deck manipulation, you know, that's why Krista comes to mind. There might be some other stuff on, you know, characters that happen to have the chaos symbol. If you can work in that space at all, then, you know, being able to spend a momentum for a very large plus or minus X damage number is quite good. And even just as a desperate, you know, I'm just going to start pressing this button and hope for the best, that can get you there. I'm sure we'll see Krista decks running this. I wonder if we'll see it in some other places. It does have the nice +2 low block, so it could fill, you know, I just need a low block in my deck. I could use something else to do with momentum. But when this is good, it's going to be a really, really, you know, big deal, high priority target, one of the best cards in the deck. Kind of, it's just one of those combo piece type cards that I'll probably be annoyed at some point, but, you know, set's new, so the card's cool until, you know, somebody does something degenerate with it. Drop down, cut deep. We're probably going to talk about cut deep if nothing else super cool comes. I got to preview Han Zoe. We don't need to talk about them necessarily. Yeah, cut deep. Cut deep is a very surprising card. This is flip 1 foundation, kind of better than +2 damage. It is on a first in hands, but you do get the weapon keyword, and we don't put +2 damage on all our moves at common these days. The last one I can think of is Brute Strength, which rotated and was kind of a format staple. Now this is, you know, worse stats, but you're flipping a foundation instead of having to pay a health and destroy one, so, you know, situationally that can be better. I would expect to see this around. I think, again, rarity wise, because it's a common, it doesn't get too much attention, but I think this is probably going to have some constructed impacts, maybe more so than any other common in the set. Down to the bottom of the right side here. We've only seen one ultra rare, so we're probably going to get like a bunch of them at some point. Who crash the floor? Erwin Smith, the greater goal. Defend the city. Marco, frenzy dash. Yeah, so the greater goal is kind of what it's so like. Cut deep is a 2/4 that lets you flip foundations for +2 damage, and here we have a 2/5 rare that when you trigger a condition lets you flip foundations for +2 damage. That's a little bit different because you can do this multiple times in an attack. You have the -2 damage side. You know, this has, you know, a higher ceiling than Cut Deep does, but just to demonstrate how good Cut Deep is, it's sort of a similar shape to this card that's making you work a little bit harder for what Cut Deep is giving you. But yeah, another card, you know, another death symbol. You probably can't play both in the same deck because they both just want to flip you one foundation to do things. So it'll be interesting to see which one people choose in their death decks. Pretty much probably depends on if they're blowing up foundations or not. But I expect most death decks to be running one of these two cards. Unless their character just gives lots of damage, they don't really need to worry about it. But like, you know, Cut Deep in Toga or Greater Goal in some Irwin type builds. Very intriguing cards to have added to the card pool here. Weird, we've had so few like +2 damage on everything foundations, and then we put 2 of them in the same set on the same symbol. A bit of a surprise. Alright, sneak attack. Okay, I see another. There's at least an ultra rare down here. Recoup, hardening. Hey, there's the regular non-altered Armin. Actually kind of looks pretty good. You know, not as cool as the altered. Beast Titans Rock Barrage for the secret rare. That's a secret rare, so we'll talk about that one. So, this is honestly probably one of the lower value secret rares in the set right now, but part of that's because it's backup themed, and backups have existed for 2 sets. So over time, if they keep doing backups, this is just going to get better and better and better. I mean, build a non-unique backup from your discard pile is, you know, begging them to make a mistake and print some huge 6 difficulty backup that does crazy things, right? So it's going to be as good as whatever the best backup it can build is. And then I don't think we're going to see too many like backup theme decks unless the character is expressly, you know, pushing it like a Zeke does, like a Beast Titan does. But, you know, if it becomes a stun 2, not that exciting. You're not going to play a backup theme deck just to trigger the other 2 blitzes on this card, but you might play this card if you have a really spicy backup. You want to be able to go 2 to 4 and get it right now on your turn, right? As opposed to having to build it. It comes down, your opponent has a chance to attack it. This lets you use it right away. So this is a card that is going to age like fine wine, even if right now it's a little bit limited when you look at what you can do with it. I'll just keep these all nice and separate, why not? Alright, we're seeing. We're going to get our clump of ultra rares here. Battlefield, Family, Ruse, Zeke Yeager speaking. Colossus, Titans, Destructive Power. Stoop. Ready to Battle, and Spinning Slash. I'm not that excited about that. This is one of the ultra rares I'm a little bit least high on. So this is a 9 difficulty 3 check. It's interesting, you know, they've started making 4 check attacks, which I think of as like a pretty reasonable way to counterbalance the really high difficulty moves. And then they go ahead and make a 9-3 anyway, which is kind of weird. So, but it is a shift. The Blitz, it does a bunch of stuff. If you're passing a 9 diff, your opponent basically stunning one, flipping one, I guess blowing up some committed thing isn't the most devastating thing in the world. They have to deal with this 7 mid for 13. Maybe, you know, with the errata to Smiling Titan, this has a little bit of appeal there, just because you don't, you know, if you're only picking speed, you don't feel too bad about your 13 damage, right? But if you do it, if you are, you know, playing this as your sort of bad check in your 4 check theme deck, I guess, you do get this to build down into, okay, never mind. This doesn't really help Smiling Titan too much, but it is a burn 2 on hit. So I guess the idea of this card is you would play it as like your 2x 9 diff in a deck that is otherwise playing normal attack strings and maybe, you know, slightly cheaper ones, but you use this to, you try to open them up as your lead in attack, make them deal with this, you know, fast 13 damage move, and then see where you're at. And then depending on the situation after that, you take your shift down, build, pass, or you can keep pushing in with attacks. So kind of interesting, not completely without a role. I think people are going to be pretty wary of the 9-3 stat line. I don't know if this is ever actually going to see play, but I can model an idea in my mind of, you know, what sort of deck might want to run this one. All right, halfway point here. Now, I believe secret rares in this set are much more like 1 in 18 packs, plus a chance of an obsidian. So they've gotten a little bit easier to pull. So we still have a chance to get a second secret rare. We could even get an obsidian one. Could even get 3 secret rares in that case. But for now, we have, ooh, Attack Titan's Haymaker. All right, this is probably projected to be the top ultra rare in the set until otherwise demonstrated. Not just because of the pedigree of 5 difficulty 4 mid 5s named Haymaker. Clearly a callback to the old back alley Haymaker, same stat line, 5/3 plus 2 high block 4 mid 5 stun 2. Instead of drawing a card and building something out of your discard pile, it builds when it shifts. It becomes a foundation after this. And it has this cheeky can't be blocked by most foundations, basically, right? So as a poke, you're gonna peel an attack out of the hand with this, or it's gonna deal damage either way. One of the better pokes you could possibly imagine playing, and then after you're done poking with it, it's gonna turn into this foundation that puts damage in all your moves, and if you happen to be low health, it gives you even more damage. I was just thinking a little bit earlier about, you know, what is the, like, fire symbol or character with fire on them cut myself down to low health deck looks like. So there's a few pieces like this where, you know, on not, oh, I'm just King Ghidorah symbol situations, you can get paid off for getting down to 10 or less health. I think the other one I was thinking was the Todoroki attack that gets Echo is kind of in that shape, so I'm wondering what kind of deck there might be in that space, and Haymaker would certainly be a part of it for sure. Water? Alright. So we're halfway through, we've gotten just about half our hits, so nice balanced box in a sense, other than kind of the bottom being a little extra heavy on that one side there. Let's see, I think we've got another ultra rare in here. Oh no, we got a pearl. It's a risky gamble. Alright, this is a pretty funky one. So it is a 1/5. This is a +2 mid block. Some of these, if it's an attack zone, it can be kind of hard to tell which one it is, and you kind of just have to know what the original card is. But as a block zone, you can tell you got the little plus mark there. It stands out even on a pearl. This card is very good if you can flip it. If you are playing flip costs, and here we are in the death symbol, we have cut deep, we have greater goal, fits right in. Then, you know, if your rival's drawing cards, then you have a 1/5 pseudo passing the torch kind of thing, right? A 1/5 commit draw card is very, very good if it is doing that for you. And then if things are getting close to deadlock, you can choose not to flip it back down with whatever your other costs are, and you'll be ready to enhance flip and then unflip it when they draw. Like, this is a really good deadlock setup as well. So I think this one's going to see play. If you can play this card, you can play either of the other flip cost things that I just mentioned. Obviously, Battle Lore releases on death itself, and there might be some other things. So this is a pretty good one to get. I don't know. I guess there's no reason not to 4x it. It's a 1 diff, right? Yeah, I think I'm kind of, my thoughts kind of like, well, I need to see this in action, but I suspect it's going to be pretty good. Our pearl down here. We have a little more space now. We'll do this. Sneak attack. Do Kenny's surprise attack to the US. Might be our first pack in a while that doesn't have a very obvious ultra rare to talk about. Offensive to retake while Maria. One of the weaker cards in the set for sure. At least in my opinion. I think it just doesn't compare very nicely to Food Motivated from the last set. So what's here that's okay, improvised anchor shot. This is a spicy little guy.
It's pretty good.
You know, by the time you get to the end of an attack string, where you're playing your dinky little 3/3, they may very well just not have anything in their hand that's not an attack card at that point. So this approaches unblockable. You have to put damage on it, but this is with the order symbol on this. You think of Fierce Swings. This is the kind of card that a Fierce Swings deck could potentially go and grab and slam some damage on. Fury ranged, not necessarily standout keywords for the order symbol, but you know, again, Attune opens up a lot of doors. I think you could be playing, for instance, a Todoroki 2 deck, which is not actually the best place for this, but you could be playing like a fire deck that cares about range and splash this guy in, that kind of thing. So yeah, not a lot to say. I think I'm just attracted to these cheeky little, you know, disrupt their ability to block this thing. Like, I like play fighting. Obviously Besiege is just raw really good. I like the little thing on Haymaker. It's just sort of an interesting way to make attacks that don't necessarily have the greatest of stats, still pretty interesting to play. And if you're just playing a whole deck full of that stuff, it's probably just very annoying, and at some point it's gonna feel like too much. But you know, until those decks are really out and about, we're just gonna think that it's cool. Passing on. Turn. More Hanj. Another Titan Swarm. Got duplicate rares in here. Storia's Declaration. Titan Rush. Concern for Annie. I feel like I haven't even like thought too much about Titan Rush. What is this card? So, you know, I guess speaking of Smiley's Titan only being able to give one stat now, right? This has a shape that might be of interest. You get a 7 difficulty. It'd be what, a 7 mid 8. That's giving your next one speed, so you can take damage on that one too in theory. As EX question mark question mark. But yeah, this is an interesting entry to the, if you wanted to make 4-check tribal, you're probably, you know, you might play something that's over 7 diff, but kind of part of the idea of what you're doing is you're trying to play, at least when I think of 4-check tribal, it's can we still play something resembling a normal set of attack, maybe not a big string, but like at least like a 3 attack string despite the difficulties that we have to have, so maybe we cap out at 7. And if you're a damage pumping character, this becomes a pretty interesting include. Yeah, I don't know. This card probably just never actually sees play, but I saw it and I'm like, man, I haven't like spent any time actually thinking about that one. Just kind of filed it away instantly. There's a chance to be a home for it at some point. At some point we're gonna talk about some more commons. I think the Sword Advantage is also a repeat. We got one in the Armin pack. Armin rather. It's so funny, in the first AOT set there were 67 rares and that was way too many. And in this set there's 26 or 28 or something, and that's probably not quite enough. These rares are pretty common to the point that we're getting dupes in a box. Which, you know, isn't the end of the world, but getting like multiple dupes in a box is a bit much. Let's see. What do we want to talk about here? Talked about Jean. Actually, Irwin's Ruse. This card has impressed me in pre-releases. It's a very easy. It's again, you're just like getting a stat. It's whatever. But Flip a Foundation is quote unquote free when you need to live or you need to win. And while +1 damage isn't going to be the difference between getting you there or not very often. When it is, this card is pretty helpful. The -1 speed, just a very small effect. Obviously plays very nice with Outwit as well. So if you're I imagine we're going to see this in decks that are trying to leverage Outwit as the way to flip them back face down. It's just kind of a sneaky little card here. I don't know if outside of Outwit it's going to see too much play. I'm trying to think. It's not -1 damage, and not that it shares with Bakugo anyway. But it's not a bad. I could see it in like a toolbox situation where this is the thing you want to go grab, just to have some flexibility. You're not really sure what you're doing yet. Yeah, definitely a card I think I just didn't play in my first sealed deck, and then I had it played against me, and I'm like, oh, I should be playing that card. And then in my second sealed deck, I definitely played this card. And via us. The second Mikasa, the viciousness of Kenny Ackerman, got some soup. Titan under some Grisha's attack Titan A. Alright, so this is, I think, probably the best balanced pure backup we've seen thus far. The hard part about designing backups is that they sort of have to be better than assets, because they can be taken out more easily, and also they have to be so much better than assets that you don't mind the off chance that you're facing like a Toga or something and giving them the free hits like a real problem. But, you know, if they're too strong and your opponent attacking them is just like automatic, then, you know, first of all, you're never going to get the effect off, right? Because the opponent's just going to swing into it every time. And, you know, second of all, the idea is it's supposed to be a decision for them whether they want to do the thing or not. But I think Grishas is really in just the right shape. I could see an opponent seeing this hit the table and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to let them have it. I could see this hitting the table and the opponent being like, oh no, I want to go take that out. Just depending on what their deck is, what the game situation is. Has the nice +1 low block. 2 difficulties, not too crazy or, you know, or oppressive or anything like that. And the effect is compelling, right? Go tutor for an attack is something that on a foundation, it's a unique foundation. It costs momentum, blows up, and tutors for an attack. So this one, you know, over any other pure backup, I'm expecting to see some play. Especially, you know, probably in particularly in Reiner Braun decks that, you know, expressly pay you off on top of that just for having the other card type in your deck. But I could see this being played in decks that aren't like, hey, play backups. Off any type of tactics. There, transformation. Levi, Sasha steady shot. Massive abnormal. Spinning slash. Sasha steady shot is a very funny card. This blitz seems really exciting, and there's a few like this where it's got some kind of funny scaling or condition, and it makes it kind of an enticing card. But I think as you think about it, is how many 1 difficulties do you actually need to have before this is exciting? Right, so if you have 4, and this is a 6 mid 6, you probably wouldn't play a 5 difficulty. 6 mid 6, EX3 powerful 2, you might actually play that card, but I think you probably actually want to have 5 or 6 or 7 1 diffs before this is a particularly compelling stat line. And I've looked, a lot of the decks when you start laying out the 1 diffs you want to play, a lot of them are flips. So you really have to alter the way you're approaching and thinking about the 1 diffs that you're playing. If you're Sasha herself, you're eating your 1 diffs. So it's a little bit of a non-bo there, but it's still on theme and it's kind of a neat card. One of those things where, like, I'm kind of glad this card exists. I think it's cool. Some people are going to have fun trying to play it. I don't know if it's actually good, but it's a pretty good choice for the normal rare slot. Alright, so we haven't... Once again, I think this is a bottom-heavy box, right? I think all of our regular ultra rares are going to come in, like, the bottom half or third of the box, aside from our pro risky gamble there. Alright, we've got Kenny, Smoke Screen Ambush, Cabin Hideout, Titan in the Woods, Connie's. So this is probably the other pure backup that I could imagine somebody running if they're playing sort of a grindy value type of deck. Because this is just like an enhanced, you turn sideways ruin 1. If they do want to attack into this and throw a move at it, like, great, you've absorbed a move and made them blow up a foundation, which is kind of a fine exchange. It's a little weird, you know, everything's competing for deck space. In order to run this, you have to not run something else, which is probably the issue it's going to run into. But I could imagine some deck that, you know, thinks that's just trying to, like, move cards around and accumulate, you know, some concept of value, starting to run a couple of these just to kind of chip away at the opponent's stage a little bit, you know, make them, they probably don't bother dealing with this and just end up losing 2 face downs, and, like, playing a 2 difficulty to drain 2 of your opponent's face downs is also good. So a pretty good value backup. Another one that I think is not quite as nailed it as Grisha's, but I think it's a pretty good backup design. They've certainly done better with those in this set than they did in the first one. Alright, getting ready to hit another string of ultras here. It's got to be coming soon, right? Piercing Drive. Deadly Pitch. Let's go for maneuvers. It's another of our 2 difficulty action cycle. Thunder Spear Detonation. I got to preview this card. I still think this card is cool. haven't actually built any new set decks yet. Like I alluded to, maybe Jeans, maybe Sasha's the first one. I don't even know. I don't know what I'm doing in what order. I've been trying to put together various pony lists today. Maybe that's the Fire Cut Myself deck. I don't know. But anyway, this one's cool. You know, powerful is a fun keyword, and getting, you know, bonus stats on your powerful has always been a pretty fun design space. You pay for it a little bit with this, you know, awkward 5-5 stat line if you're not playing the powerful, but if your deck that's good at getting momentum, it's a pretty good payoff. You're getting to pay the momentum for a speed and 3 damage, and I'm sorry, 3 speed, 3 damage, and a card, all things considered. So very spicy, very interesting card. This is, you know, 5 difficulty slots tend to be very competitive, but this is really, you know, putting its hat in the ring to make the cut in some decks, I think. Four left, 5 left, 4 packs left. Probably 3 ultras to go. Gather supplies. Violent, sword toss. Terms. There's Ruse again. Alright, we see a silver border. The Ripper arrives. Yeah, this guy. The next entry in. Let's try to make some balanced discard effects. So this one costs you a card to make them lose a card, and you have to play a subpar statted attack for your trouble. This has been a red of the range keyword, so that can be played in Kenny. If you are, you know, boosting both speed and damage, that +2/+2 kind of makes up for its supposedly subpar stats. And if you're on a discard angle, the +2 speed's not, you know, necessarily going to be relevant, but I could definitely see some decks, you know, Kenny himself or, you know, Ghidorah type decks that are kind of on this, you know, discard their hand angle. But one of the things that I saw is Kenny, there's the Ghidorah throw. That it's not a throw, so Kenny gets the trigger off. It's a 1 mid-5 range that just gets the throw effect without the throw keyword, which is a little awkward and imperfect, but, you know, in Kenny's case, it works out for him. He gets to guarantee his trigger, hit them 6 damage throw, burn them 3, make them discard a card, play Ripper Arrives, make them discard another card. If their hand's not empty yet, you play the Tri-Gravity Beam with +2/+2 on its stats, or +3/+3 because of Kenny, and their hand's empty, and +2 from the beam itself. And you haven't actually killed them, but you felt like you did something. You dealt some damage and emptied their hand, and hope they don't kill you. But that feels like that's going to be kind of a bread and butter attack chain for people trying to play Kenny. Let's play Ghidorah Toss into Ripper into Tri-Gravity Beams, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll do some other things. We'll see what people do. There is some interest from people in building Kenny Ackerman, so we'll see what they come up with. That is off camera. Slightly less off camera. So now we're down the last few packs, we get to talk comments all we want. But another silver border here. Colossus Swad. I'd probably rather talk about a common. This thing does have powerful 4, which is notable. But I don't know how much play it's really gonna see. I guess it's like a... Alright, well, here we are. It's like a pseudo 4-diff, right? Because you're going to build to. If you check a 5 on it, it's even better. But pseudo 4-diff, 5 low 5... not the worst. Yeah. I guess the thing is, because you're losing those spells at the end of a turn, it's only a 4-diff in terms of your attack turn. And then after that, anything you committed to pay for this is still gone. So... You know, I appreciate they felt like maybe Lightning Rod was a little too much and wanted to step back a little bit when they made this guy. This may have been a little bit too conservative. I think this could have had, you know, a couple more damage on it or something like that. It has the powerful 4, which is fine, but a little anti, you know, if you're playing this and you want to build the 2 foundations, that probably means you're trying to play an attack string after it. I guess the powerful makes sure that they have to block it. Right, if you have a momentum or 2, then you play this. You get the build to set up the rest of your turn, and then you make them block this, I guess is the idea. Probably not the greatest, but I think somebody's going to put this in a deck and try to do some stuff with it at some point. It has the death symbol. You could see it in Irwin decks, for instance. Right, they're going to blow up those foundations, get some wall counters for it. I know Kevin was doing that with an Order Irwin before he switched it to Death because combined firepower is bananas. He was playing the Lightning Rod. Okay, well, I got these 2 foundations. I'm going to use them. I'm going to blow them up. They're going to be wall counters. It's going to be great. So now even Death Irwin can do that with Colossus SWAT if he really, really wants to. I don't think we want to work that hard, though. Personnel shots. Irwin swing slam. Ah, they're shiny. Rooftop rumble. Forced to surrender, tragic, and blow to the head. Alright. I think rooftop rumble is probably raw bad. So, talk about blow to the head. This is kind of cheeky. It's, you know, 4 high 5 is acceptably statted, right? You can play a 4 diff just to have those stats, and it's almost like it reminds me of Hardened Jab, where this is a pretty messed up effect if they happen to let it hit, and this could be played in the same decks. Not Hardened Jab, Hardened Pummel, I think it is, the 4 high 5, Hardened Barrage. There's so many Hardened moves. So it's the 4 high 5 that unflips. And this kind of fits right in there in that same space. I think they're both Fury Punches too, for what it's worth. Which is 4 speed for 5 with a really messy on-hit effect that your opponent doesn't really want to deal with a lot of the time. But this one also has a deadlock on it. This is a very easy, I want to have some deadlock in my deck. My 4 diff slots are kind of mutable. I can play different whichever ones. Maybe I'm a Fury Stun Grenade deck while that card's still legal. Man, Stun Grenade's on the rotation list. There's gonna be some sadness about that, but yeah, the deadlock, you know, I've played cards in older eras that were kind of just mediocre just to have this deadlock ability, and yeah, this is right in that space. This is gonna have some rolls. Oh, this is a shiny, crazy, formerly banned characters on both sides of the card. Bertolt Hoover. My goodness. I'll put him over here. Alright, last pack. Probably not an ultra this time. We'll see what we get. Chaos in the streets. Humanity's Hope, Growing Unease, Brief Respite, Boulder Toss, Golden Bombardment, Connie, Bring Change to the World, Forceful Negotiator. Well, alright, we'll talk about Bring Change to the World. This is, I think this might be of the like 2-5 action cycle. This is probably the one I've spent the most time looking twice at. It's just an interesting pair of effects. The one part of it is, you know, a nice surprise health gain out of your hand, you know, good hand trappy. Obviously, I had to play Rikia at that one event, so I think about him a little bit, but not really. We're not playing Rikia just to play this card. This card isn't going to save Rikia or make him good. just to get that out of the way. But, you know, the ability to hand trap, you know, get some health back is a pretty good effect. You know, we've seen cards like Recovery Time see like a touch of play. Wound Restore is obviously pretty good, see some play. And it's really just a matter of what else that card is doing. You know, Wound Restore's case, having the chance to burn 4 gets it over the top. In this one's case, you know, it gets a progressive out of your card pool, which you may or may not be as good as what Wound Restore is doing, but it's around as good, I think, depending on the deck. So this is an interesting one. I think this could see some play in the right deck, and decks that might be thinking about playing Wound Restore but don't really need the damage. Decks that don't have Wound Restore symbols but they can attune a life symbol card like this. I don't know, again, I'm not looking at all 6 at once. I don't know if this is the most likely one to see play. You could even play a deck that's playing 4 of these and 4 Wound Restores and just be a total jerk. Right? And just try to play Keep Away. That may not be the best card economy, but you can certainly do it. You can play the Recovery Times too on top if you really want to. I would hate that deck, but you can certainly run it, and it'd be funny. And yeah, so that's going to do it for our Origins of Power box opening. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out if you listened through the whole thing. Just kind of yapping about some cards. How we did on our polls. You know, we got the alt-art character. Let's say the ultra rares and the secret rares probably not the most valuable box in the world, but we did get the good one. We got the Haymaker, we got probably the top ultra rare in the set. and we'll see how Risky Gamble goes. That one could age quite well as people start getting into decks and playing with it and seeing what they can do. Yeah, once again, thanks for tuning in. We will have a bunch of videos coming up. There may be some previews in the relatively near future. Just a little tease on that, and then mixed in with that, at some, I've got this poll going out that'll link in the description if you've made it. I should have mentioned this at the start. So I'm doing a meta poll. What characters are you considering building for Nats and Worlds and stuff? Just to try to get away from what a bandwagon think the top 5 characters are and get it down to what would people actually run, and maybe see if there's some surprises on there. So I'm gonna snapshot that after, if not tomorrow, then Saturday or something, and report back on those results and see what that is. Just sort of as an interesting talking topic. And so yeah, probably 2 or 3 more videos coming within the next week. So please look forward to that. Subscribe if you haven't. Like, comment, make fun of me if you think I'm wrong on one of these cards, etc. Yeah, until next time. Have a good night.